Hello, my name is Joe Bauer and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Well, in this video I'm just doing an update over what is 2 weeks now. Time sure goes by fast. And during this period, what I've done is really try to internalize the whole thing a lot better. To the point to where I can see the spinning icon just in my mind at any time. Whether I'm walking around, whether I'm waiting in line somewhere, whatever it is. Or also to know that I'm cycling even if I don't see the image. As you really do this better, you can kind of feel when you're cycling. Now back when I first started, I remember it felt, when I went up to hypercycling, I felt more like you would when maybe you're riding a bicycle and the chain slips off of the sprocket and then you just start spinning the pedals. It felt that way, and now when I do this, it feels more like I'm really turning something, even if I'm going fast. But what I do is I start with just that single image, and then I go back and reconnect with the very beginning of making up the list and going through the whole thing and all the hours that go into it. I reconnect with all that means, and then I cycle from there. That's when I really feel it the best. But I still lack a little bit in feeling it that strongly just at any time. And then another weakness that I've had over this period is somehow I feel like I'm slowing it down. Somehow, I don't know if I just haven't let go of it enough to spin at the high speeds that it needs to, but I feel like I slow it down a little bit. And then also during this period, I feel like I have, maybe I haven't been as playful with it. I've been more concerned with the with making it a habitual thing, but that I've kind of overlooked the playfulness. So I think in the next period I need to think more about the playfulness of it too. Okay, so that's it for what for the update goes. Really, the more interesting thing that has happened during the past couple of weeks would involve a conversation that I've had with one of my viewers in the comments section, and I would recommend that you go back and read this in more detail if you're interested in the Bengston method. But one of my viewers named Old Boy left some comments, and then we started exchanging comments, and apparently he is pretty far along in what he's doing. It sounds like he really has the hang of it. And one thing that he says here, he talks about transitioning to hypercycling and how much becomes imagination rather than an accurate process. Yeah. Well, all these questions that we brought up are questions that I've had all along the way, and I think at some point I think we have to accept once and for all that when you go from the slow, highly detailed to the extreme high speed, that there has to be a bit where we just let go of the detail, okay, and then have it be more imaginative like that. More, well, if you think of anyone, even someone who has just a great photographic memory. If they start throwing down photographs real quick, looking at each one, at some point they're going to lose track of detail. If you want to think of an audio example, because it can be audio, I'm thinking of someone like Todd Rundgren, who many times he has written a song where he writes all the lyrics, he writes the melody, the chord progression, then he records it, he plays every instrument, engineers and produces the entire thing. So you got one guy who's just written the whole song, and he has just a great representation of sound that he can do this really well. Okay, so if you took a 5-minute song of his that he's just done, and then if you played it back for him in 5 seconds, it would not, I don't think he'd be able to pick up all the detail. He'd be able to recognize the pattern, the overall, like the flow of it, but not the detail. It would go by too fast, I think. And then if you sped it up to 1 second, it would. I don't think it could be any more than a symbolic representation of of what the entire thing really means. So I think we have to accept that, and I think that when we go up to this high-speed minimalistic representation of it, I think maybe that is where the gimmick and the playfulness really helps, because it does seem more like a kind of like a childish make-believe kind of a thing that's going on a bit there. So I bet that is where more playfulness and the gimmickry really kind of kicks in. So I want to hold that point. I want to hold that point in mind, and then combine it here with the next part, because, and to quote old boy again, he says, "I guess I'm using my sense of touch by invoking the feeling of kinetic energy." Well, now when I read the part about kinetic energy, I thought about how in science they talk about how energy is either stored or kinetic. And kinetic is like movement. So when I saw that, I thought, oh, that has to do with momentum. And I had been thinking about momentum for the past few weeks. In fact, you remember on the video that I made where I used this chart, I made a reference to momentum and how our unconscious mind kind of has us all following along on a momentum. Our unconscious mind kind of determines our direction and our momentum, and then we manifest things by connecting with these things very deeply, and then bringing them into the path of our momentum. Or maybe we curve our path over to match the desire. But either way, they have to line up. And to me, that is an indicator of momentum. And how this would apply to the Bengston method, there's a few examples that I thought of. One example would be, if, first of all, okay, any of us who are practicing this, we understand that we have a history of making up the list and blah, 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 going through the whole thing, all the hours that go into it, and we end up cycling quickly. And so then there's a momentum that we have with that because we have a history with it. And if you were just to grab a volunteer off the street and just grab someone and say, "Hey, come here," and you brought him over here, and you just explain to him, let's say, just making up an example, let's say you get someone, an unsuspecting stranger, to be a volunteer, and you say, "Hey, look, I'm looking at a Ferris wheel that is spinning really fast, and I just see the lights, and I see it spinning really fast. So you imagine the same thing and tell me what happens." Now that person could imagine the same thing. They could be, in their mind, they could imagine the same thing that you are. But it wouldn't mean anything to them at all, because it doesn't have that representation of all of those things on the list and how it all reduced down. And it wouldn't have any momentum, would it? I mean, 2 minutes earlier they were off in another direction, and now all of a sudden you're having them just imagine, this spinning Ferris wheel or whatever it is. But it wouldn't mean anything to them because they don't have any momentum, and the whole thing just doesn't mean anything to them. It's just a spinning image. But to the person who has gone, all this distance with the whole thing, it means something. And to me, that's an indicator that the Bengston method has to be a lot about momentum. And then another example would be how Dr. Bengston says that spinning fast is a very important part of this. Spinning fast, I mean cycling very, very quickly, that's got to be about momentum. And then furthermore, another example is that he says that cycling with any strong emotion is an instrumental part of it. So, whether the emotion is positive or negative, even, to be feeling something strongly when you cycle is more effective. And to me, that is also an indicator that momentum is a big part of this. And then one more thing is that if you take that spinning image and all of its momentum, and I'm thinking, when you think of it consciously and you know that you're doing it, it's almost like you're taking everything on your list and you're plopping it down right in your path. You're bringing it right into the path of where you're going, and in all of your energy flow. You're bringing it right dead center in your path, and you're saying, okay, spin quickly, stay right in the path of my momentum until everything on here gets done, or that I get everything on the list, whichever it is. But stay in my path until everything happens. Don't you think so? So that would also be about momentum. Anyway, if you have any thoughts about that, if you think that is true, if you think that I'm on the right track, or whether you think it's all bullshit, whatever, leave a comment and we can talk about that. I think it really helps a lot. I think the conversation that I had here with old boy is probably the more useful thing that happened there in the past couple of weeks. Okay, well, I better stop, and I want to thank you all for tuning in, and please come back for more, and may you see clearly in 2020.